Hey guys, so I'm hoping I can keep this video nice and short because as you guys can probably tell by the way that I look, I haven't been feeling all that great, but I have been dying to get this done. I finally received the last thing that I ordered with my Christmas money, which is a tarot deck, and I wanted to do an unboxing video for it and like for, you know, first impressions, and I don't want to wait another however long it may take for me to feel better to do this because I want to start working with these cards right away. But I ordered this on Christmas Eve, I want to say it was, and they shipped it out on December 28th, and I just got it today. So it took over 2 weeks to get to me, and it actually came from Jamaica. Hang on. Jamaica, New York. Is that even a place? Anyway, but I'm so excited for this deck because this is actually one that I have owned and worked with before. Excuse me. This deck was actually my absolute favorite of all my decks at one point. A few years ago I did my, spiritual house cleaning and gave away a bunch of my decks, gave away a bunch of my books, took down my altar, all that stuff. And this was one of the decks that I gave away. I actually gave the deck to a very, very good friend here in the community, a very good pagan friend of mine. And she just completely fell in love with it the way that I had fallen in love with it when I first got it. And it was one of those decks that just, it was an immediate, click with the way that I think and the way that I perceive things. I fell in love with the artwork. The messages were just super, super clear for me. And since I started working with Kokopelli again, he's been advising me to get a hold of this deck again. So I finally did, and I'm super excited. So here goes my unboxing of the Vision Quest Tarot. And I was thinking ahead, I did grab my scissors because I don't want to try to rip this thing open and end up hurting myself or damaging the box. Because if I remember correctly, this deck actually comes in a basic cardboard tuck box, nothing else. So let's see. Got the order slip and a bookmark from the actual seller, and then the deck, brand new shrink wrap. So the outside of the box, like the artwork that's on the outside of the box, is different from the first copy of this deck that I owned, and I'm not upset about that in the least, because if I remember correctly, the card that is on the front here is the Sun card, which is a card that I work with quite a bit in the tarot since I started working with tarot cards again. And that is just a beautiful representation, of course. Oh, she is on here. So this lady right here, the medicine woman, or high priestess, if I remember correctly, she was what was on the front of the box, the last copy of this deck that I had. And then on the side, and I believe that is the ace of the air suit, and I can't remember what all of the suits actually are in this deck, but I know they're a little bit different. This deck, if I remember correctly, was quite a bit different from the Rider-Waite-Smith. It was just a very non-traditional tarot deck. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and, oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to get my hands on these, you guys. The first copy of this deck that I had, there it is. I actually ended up trimming them because it was driving me nuts having the white border on the backs of the cards. And if it is the same with this copy, then I'll be trimming them again, just because the backs on the first copy were so beautiful. It was a night sky with an eagle flying through it. And so that white border on the back of the cards, it drove me nuts. It completely distracted from the artwork and just the beauty of it. And just, oh. So anyway, so it does come in just a basic cardboard tuck box, which means I will get to make a box or a bag for this deck, which I'm pretty excited about that too. I love making, or I used to love making boxes and bags for my decks all the time. So, oh, I remember this little white book. And so got pretty basic introduction, like how the deck was designed and changed up. Just some notes from the author and the artist. I know I'm gonna completely mispronounce their names here, but Gayan Sylvie Winter and Joe Dose. I'm sure I completely mispronounced that, but you guys can see it on the front of the box right there. Those people whose names I probably just butchered all to hell. And then a little blurb on how the tarot is typically broken up into the majors and the minors. And then the symbolism in the Vision Quest Tarot. So arrows and wands represent fire. Jars and bowls represent water. Feathers and birds represent air in this deck. And then the vegetables and flowers represent earth. And like what other decks use for those symbols, like for the arrows and wands, you would see stars or clubs. Wands are pretty typical. Jars and bowls would be cups or chalices, or hearts if you're using just a regular playing deck for divination, that kind of thing. And then preparing for a session, so how to prepare yourself and your deck for a reading. And then a few layouts that you can try. And then it goes right into the card meanings, starting with the major arcana. And this deck this little white book, you don't get any image reprints, but it looks like it's exactly the same as the last time that I had this, which is pretty exciting because you get a lot of information in this little tiny white book. So the number of the card and the title. So like card 0, the clown, and then relates to the fool is actually written there. So they translate which traditional tarot card it is. And then you have an in essence section, which is basically keywords for that card. And then an inner message, an outer manifestation. Oh, and that's it. That's good. Yeah. So, but they do that for every single card. So little tiny book, but lots and lots and lots of information. And I'm so excited for this. So, yes, it is the exact same backings on the cards, which means I will be trimming the edges off of that because it makes me crazy. I typically don't mind borders on the faces of cards, because or at least I like to be able to focus in on one card in particular when I'm doing a reading, instead of having them all just kind of jumbled together without borders so all the colors bleed into one another. I know some people that helps them quite a bit, but for me it's more of a hindrance. So having borders on the faces don't bother me. Having borders on the back, that's a distraction, and it's quite frustrating to me. But so you get your 2 extra cards here, a guarantee, like warranty type thing, and then a little like advertisement card from the publishing company. So those will probably be going in the trash, or I just had an idea. I just had an idea. I'll keep a hold of these. So we start with, actually, the cardstock is thinner than the last time that I had this particular deck. The cardstock is thinner, but it's also not as glossy, which means that they will be easier to shuffle and probably a lot easier to trim. The first copy of this deck, when I trimmed them, the edges became super, super, super rough. So I had to take a nail file to every single card, and they ended up being all different sizes. So these hopefully will be a little easier for me to trim. But the artwork is pretty simple, but very, very effective. And of course, this is a Native American inspired tarot deck. And I love it. Like this High Priestess, the Medicine Woman, isn't she just beautiful, you guys? Oh. And then Grandmother for the Empress, the turtle in the background. And Grandfather for the Emperor with the buffalo. And the Shaman is the Hierophant. There's just so much symbol. Oh! And ooh. Just had 3 of them jump. But, oh my goodness. Come here. So the first one that jumped was the Shaman. And then I also lost the Lover's card. Very simple, but very beautiful. Just, I'm so happy I got this deck again. And the Spirit Warrior or the Chariot. Just a beautiful deck here. And Balance. I forget if this is the Temperance card or the Strength card, or I honestly, I don't remember. It's been too long since I worked with these cards. And the Hermit, which is still called the Hermit in this deck. And then the Wheel of Fortune card is the Small Medicine Wheel. And this was actually probably my favorite card in the whole deck, Integration, which is I believe it's Temperance actually. But you've got this beautiful grandmother weaving this gorgeous tapestry here with all of the birds flying out of it, and there's a spider in the corner weaving her web. It's just, I love this card. And then the World card is the Big Medicine Wheel. So you've got Little Medicine Wheel, Big Medicine Wheel. So the smaller picture, which is your life, versus the bigger picture, which is just life in general, creation, all of creation. I think that is just gorgeous. I think it's so beautiful. I am so happy to have this deck again, guys. Like, I might cry. I'm so excited. Just a couple of the cards that I distinctly remember, and I'm anxious to see how I can work with them this time. This guy right here, Son of Fire, he used to show up in nearly every single reading that I did for myself. Nearly every single one. And every single reading, the message that he gave me would be different. Every single reading. So I had a lot of issues with this particular card. And so I'm anxious to get these trimmed and get them cleansed and everything, and see if he shows up again. Just, these cards are so simple, but so beautiful. Like this one right here, I remember quite vividly too, the 5 of Air or 5 of Swords. There was just something about this that always stuck with me when it showed up in a reading. Again, I'm just anxious to see if it's one of them that shows up a lot again. I'm so happy to have this deck in my hands again. It is such a relief. It kind of feels like coming home to have this in my hands again. Here's another one this was actually one of my favorites. I would be so happy when this showed up in a reading. It's Two of Earth. How beautiful is that? It's so, the artwork is so simple and yet so highly effective. It's very evocative, even though it's really very simple. So there we go. I'm super excited about this, and if you guys want a actual like new deck review after I've had the chance to get these cleaned up and get, you know, had the chance to work with them a little bit, I would be very happy to do that, because I have a feeling this is going to become my favorite deck once again. I am just so happy to have it back in my hands and be using this artwork again in my spiritual practice. So, but yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and if I don't see you before, I'll see you in the next video. Namaste and blessed be.